Amelia lived a simple, unassuming life as a dedicated vegan. She passionately advocated for animal rights and sustainability, actively participating in local environmental initiatives. Her unshakable belief in the sanctity of all life had made her a respected figure in the community. But beneath her compassionate exterior, a darkness lurked, something that even she couldn't comprehend. It all began with a series of vivid nightmares that plagued her sleep, each one more terrifying than the last. In these nightmares, Amelia found herself trapped in a macabre slaughterhouse, surrounded by the anguished cries of animals. The sharp stench of blood and the grotesque sounds of butchery assaulted her senses. As the nightmares persisted, she realized that she was the one wielding the knife, ending the lives of innocent animals. Disturbed and terrified, she visited a psychiatrist, hoping to find some relief from the torment of her dreams. The doctor suggested that her nightmares might be manifestations of suppressed emotions related to her vegan beliefs. Amelia's devotion to animal rights had created a subconscious conflict, causing her to confront the darker aspects of the natural world. As days turned into weeks, Amelia's nightmares continued, but they began to bleed into her waking life. She would find herself lost in thought, her eyes fixated on the slow, rhythmic pulses in the necks of those around her. The subtle sound of heartbeats became a sinister symphony, luring her into a dark trance. Her friends began to notice the change in her behavior. She had become distant, obsessed with the idea of life and death. Her conversations were filled with unnerving questions about the fragility of existence. She asked her friends if they had ever tasted the forbidden fruit of flesh, a question that left them unsettled. One evening, Amelia's disturbing transformation took a terrifying turn. She received news of a local meatpacking plant's environmental violations. The information sent her spiraling into a frenzied state. Her nightmares and obsessions had combined into a single, inescapable urge that would drive her to the brink of madness. Late at night, under the cover of darkness, Amelia set her plan into motion. She donned dark clothing, her hands trembling as she approached the meatpacking plant. She had to expose the horrors that occurred within, to save the innocent animals and protect the sanctity of life. It was her calling, or so she believed. Infiltrating the facility was eerily easy. The night watchman had fallen asleep at his post, leaving the entrance unguarded. Amelia slipped inside, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind teetering on the edge of reason. Amelia descended into the bowels of the plant, each step taking her deeper into the underworld of slaughter. The sickening stench of blood and the haunting echoes of machinery filled the air. She felt a connection to the animals that she was about to set free, but it was a connection tinged with madness. As she approached the holding pens, a horrifying revelation dawned upon her. The animals, previously oppressed and confined, had been replaced by something more sinister. In their place stood humans, shackled and marked for slaughter. Amelia's mind reeled with disbelief. She had expected to find animals, not people. Her nightmares had not prepared her for this horrifying truth. Her obsessions had led her to a place where her vegan convictions were turned on their head. With her heart racing and a growing sense of dread, she stumbled upon a room filled with butchery equipment, each tool designed for maximum efficiency. The macabre setting sent chills down her spine. It was as though she had entered her own nightmares, only this time, it was real. Amelia knew she had to act quickly to save these people. She moved silently, unlocking the shackles that bound them. But as the first person she freed stood up, something snapped within her. The urge to protect life had warped into an insatiable hunger, a hunger that could only be satiated with the taste of flesh. Before her horrified eyes, she found herself reaching for a nearby blade, her hand moving of its own accord. She could no longer distinguish between the animals and humans. The sanctity of life had become a grotesque blur. The screams of the meatpacking plant's captives filled the room as the blade came down, again and again. It was a nightmare made flesh, an embodiment of the darkness that had consumed Amelia's soul. As the first light of dawn broke, the meatpacking plant was bathed in an eerie silence, the echoes of horror fading into the shadows. Amelia stood amid the gruesome aftermath, her hands covered in blood, her eyes vacant. The nightmares had finally ceased, but in their place, a grim reality had taken hold. Amelia, once a devout vegan, had become a merciless killer, driven by a thirst for flesh that could never be quenched. Her journey into the darkest recesses of her mind had left her a changed and horrifying figure, a stark reminder that the line between sanity and madness is thinner than we dare to imagine. In the heart of a quaint, remote village, there lived a passionate vegan named Eliza. She had devoted her life to animal rights and sustainability, advocating for the sanctity of all life. Her reputation as a respected figure in the community was unblemished until a chilling series of events would unravel her world. One fateful evening, Eliza found herself wandering through the dense woods surrounding her village. A deep, otherworldly hunger gnawed at her, unlike any craving she had experienced before. Her vegan principles had held her strong for years, but tonight, something sinister had taken root. As she strolled deeper into the forest, she stumbled upon a hidden glen, bathed in eerie moonlight. A mysterious figure stood at the center, shrouded in darkness. Eliza's heart raced as she recognized him from a dating app. Ethan, a man who openly declared his carnivore diet. Her instincts told her to flee, but a strange and irresistible pull drew her closer. In his hand, Ethan held a raw, crimson steak. The sight of it sent a shiver down Eliza's spine, and a hunger unlike any other overtook her. She tried to turn away, but her body refused to obey. It was as if she had become a puppet, manipulated by some unseen force. Ethan sliced into the rare steak with a sinister smile, savoring the bloodied bite. Eliza's vision blurred, her heart raced, and a menacing voice whispered in her mind. It urged her to take a bite, to quench the unholy thirst that coursed through her veins. In a daze, she reached for a knife that lay beside the feast of flesh. She cut into the meat, trembling with a mixture of repulsion and compulsion. As the blood touched her lips, a shock of ecstasy coursed through her, awakening something ancient and sinister within. The moment the forbidden flesh passed her lips, Eliza's transformation was complete. She became a creature of the night, a vampire. The village that had once revered her as a beacon of compassion would now tremble in fear. Ethan was the first to realize the extent of the horror he had unleashed. The moment Eliza tasted human blood, her newfound power was undeniable. She became faster, stronger, and could manipulate the minds of those she fed upon. Ethan's presence had awakened the monster within her, and now he was her first victim. The village was soon gripped by terror as Eliza's hunger knew no bounds. She hunted the villagers under the cover of night, draining them of their life force. Each death only intensified her insatiable appetite, and the once peaceful village descended into chaos. Desperation and fear ran rampant as the villagers sought refuge in their homes, fortifying themselves against the ravenous predator who had once championed their values. Eliza's vegan principles lay in tatters, consumed by the darkness that had taken hold of her. In a twisted turn of events, Eliza's vampire nature drew her to the village's last survivor, a young child named Lily, who hid trembling in the shadows of her home. Eliza's once compassionate heart wrenched as she recognized the innocence in the child's eyes, but her newfound hunger overpowered any semblance of mercy. Lily's terrified gaze met Eliza's, and for a fleeting moment, Eliza hesitated. But the unrelenting thirst seized control, driving her to lunge at the child's neck. The taste of Lily's blood was bittersweet, a cruel reminder of the compassionate woman she once was. With a heavy heart and tears in her eyes, Eliza knew there was no turning back. Her transformation into a vampire had irrevocably altered her, leaving her a remorseless predator, a monster that had once been a protector of life. The village lay in ruins, its streets lined with the lifeless bodies of those who had once admired Eliza's dedication to veganism. The forest had claimed her as one of its own, and she would remain there, a relentless nightmare, a bloodthirsty creature of the night. The story of Eliza serves as a chilling reminder that even the staunchest of convictions can crumble in the face of darkness, and that sometimes the most horrifying monsters are born from the unlikeliest of places. In the heart of a remote, ancient forest, nestled far from civilization, lived Olivia. She was a passionate vegan, dedicated to the principles of animal rights and sustainability. Her reputation as an advocate for the sanctity of all life had earned her respect in her community, but she was about to face a harrowing journey that would test the very core of her beliefs. One fateful day, Olivia boarded a small plane for a journey to a remote eco-village, where she planned to volunteer her time and expertise in sustainable farming. The flight was turbulent, and the plane's engines roared with an unsettling intensity. With a bone-rattling crash, the aircraft plummeted into the heart of the ancient forest, leaving a trail of wreckage in its wake. Olivia awoke amidst the twisted metal and shattered trees. She was battered, but miraculously alive. Her instinct was to help the other survivors, but to her dismay, there were none. The forest was eerily silent, savvy for the sounds of her own ragged breathing. She had always been an unwavering advocate for animal rights, but now she faced a chilling reality. She was stranded in a remote forest with limited supplies, miles away from civilization, and no hope of immediate rescue. Her vegan principles, once a source of strength, now cast shadows of doubt and uncertainty upon her. As days turned into weeks, Olivia struggled to find food in the wilderness. She had always vowed to never harm animals, but hunger gnawed at her insides, and the meager vegetation she managed to forage provided minimal sustenance. Her once vibrant spirit waned, and her health deteriorated. She tried to survive on berries and plants, but her body weakened further. The forest was harsh and unforgiving, and the weight of her choices was heavy upon her. Olivia was a dedicated vegan, but the forest forced her to confront the most fundamental of instincts: the will to survive. One fateful morning, Olivia spotted a rabbit nibbling on some leaves, its large eyes filled with innocent curiosity. The sight of the rabbit tore at her heart, but her own hunger had grown insatiable. She crafted a makeshift snare from vines and twigs, her hands trembling as she set the trap. Olivia's eyes welled with tears as she watched the snare catch the rabbit. It was a harrowing moment of conflict, her vegan principles clashing with the desperate necessity to eat. She sobbed as she prepared the meal, her heart heavy with the weight of her choices. With every bite, she could feel the moral fabric of her beliefs unraveling. It was a painful, agonizing transformation. She had always been an advocate for the sanctity of all life, but now she was forced to take it to survive. Days turned into weeks, and Olivia's transformation into a predator was complete. She became a skilled hunter, providing herself with the sustenance she needed, but the cost of her survival weighed heavily upon her conscience. The forest, once a place of pristine beauty, was now tinged with the echoes of her ordeal. One fateful evening, as Olivia crouched by her campfire, she heard rustling in the underbrush. Her senses went on high alert. She was no longer the helpless survivor. She was now a creature of the forest, wary of any potential threat. Out of the darkness emerged a figure, tall and menacing. It was another survivor of the plane crash, disheveled and wild-eyed. But the haunting part was what he carried in his hands: the remains of the forest's wildlife. Birds, rabbits, squirrels, and more, skinned and lifeless. Olivia's heart sank as she realized the gruesome truth. The other survivor had resorted to hunting and killing animals to survive. In the dim light of the fire, their eyes met, and a silent understanding passed between them. Their vegan principles had been shattered by the forest's unyielding harshness. As the days passed, the two survivors worked together to gather food, setting traps, and sharing the grim task of hunting. Their survival was a testament to their resilience and adaptability, but they had become different people. Their beliefs had been altered, and they could never return to the unwavering vegans they once were. And then, one fateful night, the other survivor didn't return to camp. Panic surged through Olivia's veins as she searched the forest for any sign of him. Finally, she found him, lying lifeless by a trap he had set. The realization was chilling. In the struggle for survival, her companion had become prey himself. The forest had claimed yet another victim, leaving Olivia as the last survivor. With a heavy heart, she continued to navigate the harsh wilderness. Her journey was a chilling testament to the fragility of conviction and the brutality of nature. But she was not alone. In the eerie silence of the forest, she sensed the presence of something else, something far more sinister. As the days turned into weeks, her transformation took a dark and twisted turn. The forest, it seemed, had not yet finished testing her.